Welcome to Escaping the Grind, everyone, the show where we explore how interesting people have found creative ways to live life on their own terms. Whether you have achieved or are working towards financial independence, are leveraging geo arbitrage, or simply switching careers to improve your life satisfaction, we want to document these journeys and amplify their impact. I'm your host, Sully, and I'm here to explore how real people break free from the 9-to-5 grind, redesign their lives, and pursue new life projects. I myself escaped the grind of a high responsibility career, long dark winters, and Canada's affordability crisis. I'm now exploring a nomadic lifestyle and am currently in Medellin, Colombia. Today, my guest is someone who's taken a completely different path, combining a sabbatical year with geo arbitrage and financial independence. We're going to unpack his story, his mental preparation, and expectations for his upcoming sabbatical year in Medellin, Colombia, and beyond. With no further delay, let's jump in. Welcome to the podcast, Zach.
Thank you so much, Sully. Nice to be here.
Yeah, so let's warm things up here. Why don't you give us your backstory? How did you get here? Where are you? And maybe also just tell us a little bit about this upcoming sabbatical year.
Okay. So brief background. I'm Canadian. I grew up in a relatively small city in Northern Ontario. I moved to an even smaller one for university. Moved to Ottawa after for work, but decided sort of on a whim to move to the UK. After that, 8 months became 3 years, but eventually me and my ex-girlfriend moved back to Canada. I pursued a career in the federal public service in Ottawa, where I've been ever since. So I've got about 20 and a half years of service, as we say. And in terms of the sabbatical, I'm just planning to spend the bulk of my time in Colombia, in Medellin specifically. I do want to travel a bit as well, to Mexico, maybe some other areas, but the bulk of my time will be in Colombia, a place I'm familiar with and love so very much.
That's interesting. It's interesting to hear that you've already jumped across the pond, as they say, and worked in a different country. And did I hear 20 years of service?
Yeah, here in Ottawa, in the federal government, I've been with the government now 20 and a half, but who's counting? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congrats to you in staying that long in a job and with that employer. So tell me a little bit about your grind and what does it look like in the public service? And I'll just preface this by saying a lot of people think of work in the public service as kind of quote unquote easy. And I myself worked in the public service, and I'll tell you it's not easy. There's things that don't happen in the private service that make things frustrating and challenging. But let's hear what your grind is like. And it can go beyond work as well, right?
Okay. Well, yeah, I've kind of exist in a bit of a bubble. I've only really worked for the federal public service. I did have some other jobs before getting into this, but like you said, it's not all easy. There are a lot of hardworking people in the different departments I've been and where I am currently that dedicate, their lives to this stuff. And I'll say I work what is probably a typical federal public service schedule these days, 37 and a half hours a week of paid work. Very rare that in this role I have to do any kind of overtime. I get, a healthy amount of vacation. With 20 years of service, you kind of move up the scale for vacation. And I get to spend, a bit of time away from this Canadian winter. In terms of work, my work environment, I work in the office 3 days a week. I work at home twice a week. I walk to work, 35-minute walk. I cross the interprovincial bridge here in Ontario to go to work in Quebec. Basically, in general, it's rushing during the week, especially the days in the office where I have to get up earlier. I sleep poorly. the night before, and then try to catch up on the weekend on sleep, on household stuff, on exercise, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, no, that's fair. The thing I was noticing, I was out with my wife today and we went in the Ciclovia here in Medellin where you can walk. They close off some main arteries of the city and you can walk and it's really pleasant. And I commented to my wife that, my step count is way up because when we were back in Calgary just recently in November and October, as it gets darker and colder, there's just less propensity for you to go out and walk and be active. So there's a bit of a correlation with the winter. And also just the pace of work sometimes in the public sector. I remember when we were trying to move big initiatives through, it has to go through a gazillion committees and, something sometimes that's slightly related to another department and they don't have some sort of say in it and they don't hear about it. They'll make a big huff and a puff about a specific initiative and then you're all the way back to the drawing board. And that's kind of how I remember my time in the public service is, wanting to move quickly and at the pace of business, but not being able to just because government is inherently slower and just has layers and layers of consultations and committees and all that kind of stuff. So definitely something I don't miss.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that you'll get a break from that. And I'll be curious to learn, how is life outside the machinery of government and that routine of working and getting up and, the sun not being up and walking to work and then coming home and the sun is almost gone. It'll be interesting to get your perspective maybe in 6 to 12 months.
Absolutely.
So your situation is unique. You're on a sabbatical while pursuing financial independence. How do you use a sabbatical year, which is a temporary situation, as a test run to accelerate towards, a permanent financial independence plan?
Yeah, it's something that I've considered for years, to be honest. I think the first time I considered doing this it was more meant as a mid-career break, not like kind of a bridge to the next chapter. 2020, I don't know if anyone remembers that, but it ended up not being the right moment, but I had planned to take a year off, change my plans for obvious reasons. Me as a federal public servant, I'm lucky because we have the opportunity to do this, depending on your occupational group, once in your career. Step away for 1 year and your job is held for you. So there's a cost to it, obviously, no salary for a year. You lose out on certain things, but the time is still pensionable if you choose to pay the employer's part of the contributions. So it could still count as pensionable time. You could still retire at the same time you had planned. But yeah, I'm very fortunate to have this opportunity to use it as kind of a test run now, like little later in my career. That made my decision easier, knowing that I have that kind of to fall back on if for whatever reason I decide this lifestyle's not for me, or after a year, I decide for whatever reason I want to come back, I can do that for a year and a half, whatever I choose to do. I don't expect that will be the case, but it just psychologically it gave me kind of more confidence to do what I'm doing, knowing that I have a fallback plan if for whatever reason it's not a good time to step away permanently.
Do you, tying back to identity a little bit, do you have any activities or things you want to try out to fill some of that time and void? Or are you just going to explore it or kind of meander through while you travel?
I have a lot of things that I wish I could do now that I don't have the time to do, or I wish I had more time to devote and energy. So in addition to traveling, obviously, but things like I love language learning. So to devote more time to language learning is something I plan to do. Learning, period. There's just so much, I don't know, there's so many things out there to learn about travel, about financial independence, about philosophy, but you name it. There's things that I want to learn and read about, and also for fitness or for preparing my own food. Or there's so many things I feel like I have room to learn, nutrition. So I'll have more time to devote to that kind of thing. Also, spend time with family. I do plan to come back home and spend some time with family that you might see once in a while when you're at home, but everyone has their lives. But I will have the time there to like spend good quality time with family members. So, yeah, those are some of the things I look forward to doing.
Yeah, and you mentioned just having time to explore them. Some of the things I've been exploring here, which have been great so far, I have some friends and they play cards every Sunday, and it's super fun. And it's something I wouldn't have done when I was in my grind because I was batch making lunches for the week and starting to worry about those meetings or those projects that needed to advance. So that's been an interesting thing to do every Sunday, which I'm actually doing this afternoon after this podcast. There's a really cool paddle club just down the road, and I'm probably going to take some lessons and join a league and start playing paddle, which will be interesting. Right? There's just lots of things to do. So it gives that time to start to explore them. And energy, which is the other ingredient in being able to explore things. Now, you've mentioned you're coming to Medellin, Colombia. Why did you choose Colombia? What's the driver or the attraction?
There's so many. I mean, anyone who's been to Colombia knows that it's a special place. I realized the moment I arrived there for the first time. And specifically Colombian people. The Colombians they're such good people. I've had friends here in town that I've met through playing soccer over the years. My ex-girlfriend is Colombian. I owe a huge debt of gratitude to her because she's the one who brought me to Colombia for the first time. 2018, we went down to meet her family. Well, for me to meet her family. And yeah, I fell in love with it from that first visit, and that's even without being able to speak the language, just the friendliness of the people. And then once I learned the language, it just opened so many more doors. It's so, yeah, very easy to connect with people down there, to have conversations with people, to make eye contact with people, things that you may notice that we just don't get back home. So yeah, there's so many reasons to the climate. If you like warm weather, if you like cooler weather, if you like the beach, if you like the mountains, if you like big cities or small towns, there's everything, and it's all relatively close together or easily accessed. There's so many reasons.
And two follow-up questions. How much time up until now have you actually spent in Colombia? And had you considered other countries when you were planning this sabbatical year?
So time, I think I've been now 8 or 9 times since 2018. The average visit is usually around a month, I would say. And yeah, so I guess that's a fair bit of time, but I look forward to being there a lot more. Considering other places, honestly, like I kind of had my mind made up from the first time I visited Medellin. It was my second time in Colombia, but my first time in Medellin, and I just fell in love with the place. I kept going back again and again. Then I decided, you know what, maybe I'm missing out on something else. Maybe I should branch out a bit more within Colombia. Because I've been to Costa Rica, I've been to Mexico, I've been to Panama, places like that, but I just connected with Colombia the most. So I spent some time in other places in Colombia. I will say I do like Bogota as well. It's a massive city with its own pros and cons, but I enjoy spending time there as well. I've tried spending time in smaller cities like Pereira, Armenia, and even smaller towns. But yeah, I keep going back to Medellin. So yeah, I didn't really consider another country or seriously consider another city, to be honest, once I spent time in Medellin and started connecting with people down there.
Cool. It sounds like you've found your spot. I think Bogota is also very underrated. People arrive and it's kind of cold and it's a big city, but it kind of grows on you after a while. I actually like the cooler weather, and the whole Highlands Andino piece is a whole thing. It's a whole cultural piece. Boyacá is really a cool place to explore as well. It's just different, different plant life, different people wearing different clothes. It's like a subculture that's really interesting to explore. Let's just shift a little bit about expectations, right? So you've spent a couple weeks here, a month there. You're now going to spend an extended period of time. How will living in Colombia help you escape the grind? Like, what do you expect? What are your objectives, and what do you think will happen as you spend a more extended period of time here?
So I've never spent more than, I guess, 5 or 6 weeks off in my life that I can recall anyway. Maybe after I graduated, but I don't know. I have a taste of it from having spent like months at a time. And I know to start, it's always just disconnecting, taking control of my time, not setting an alarm clock. Although anyone who's been to Colombia knows that there are early risers there, and sometimes you don't need an alarm clock. There's all sorts of activity, people selling things in the streets, whatnot. But yeah, it'll just be kind of disconnecting, decompressing a bit, and deciding what I want to do and devoting time to myself and my activities. I don't know. I find that just being able to do what I want to do, I'm not going to sit around and twiddle my thumbs. There's so many things. Like in the past, when I've started going to Colombia, after the first visit, I went to Medellin and I spent a month just in a language school. So I was studying 20 hours a week, 5 hours of coaching, all these other activities outside of the school. So these kind of things where it's possible to participate in different activities. I'll have more time to devote to that kind of thing. And yeah, I don't know, it's like just getting away from having control over my time. Like I was last year I was denied a vacation leave request of, I asked for three weeks of leave. I had about 10 weeks of leave built up over the last few years because I didn't travel as much. And it was denied. They gave me a week. And so I was really disappointed with that. It didn't sit well with me. It kind of felt like it was denied for no good reason. And I didn't like not having that kind of control over my life. And for example, like if you purchase real estate for like the investor visa in Colombia, there's like a requirement. You cannot go, I think it's more than 180 days or 6 months without setting foot in the country. You have to be there once every 6 months. Otherwise you can lose your visa. And so I just thought, like, I don't want to risk having to go through something like that. And I just, I don't know. It's more like it's a combination of escaping things, escaping the cold, getting away from that kind of lack of control, and taking control of my own life. And I'm very fortunate to be able to do this.
Yeah, and to try it out.
Yeah.
That's the important part, because sometimes people like structure and feel a little empty, and then there's others that appreciate the freedom and find ways to fill it. I appreciate the no alarm clock thing. It's wonderful to sleep in as long as you want. But it's interesting that you are kind of appreciating that newfound freedom and what it'll taste like. So you've just mentioned that you are looking into a potential investor visa scheme in Colombia. Can you just share a little bit for the audience what's the program, and what's attractive about it, and what maybe someone interested should consider?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I've spent a lot of time learning about over the years as I've kind of considered doing this. But basically, if you make an investment either in a company, a business, or in real estate, you're eligible for an investor's visa, you have to exceed a certain threshold. And you're able to renew this visa, and it can eventually lead to residency if you maintain it for long enough. I think it's after 5 years of holding like this investor's visa, you can apply for a permanent residency. So that's an attractive option, because otherwise you're sort of limited to 180 days per year, travel as a tourist. But I want to spend more time than that, so it's something I'm looking into. It's complicated. I recommend searching YouTube. There's some people that talk about this, about the thresholds, about the rising thresholds, because every year that threshold increases. You have to be once every 6 months in the country, which won't be an issue for me. It's not punishment to have to spend time in Colombia. And for me, I would personally plan to purchase something and rent it out through a property management company while I'm away, paying, I think it's 15% to a property management company to take care of everything, market it. So it's something I'm looking into. It may happen during this year. I'm not sure yet. We'll see if there are any good opportunities, but we shall see.
That's really cool. And I think when we briefly chatted before the podcast, you mentioned that you were targeting Laureles neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Do you want to just share with the audience a little bit about Laureles and maybe why it's an attractive place? I do recall seeing, I don't know if it was a Forbes magazine piece on it, calling it one of the coolest neighborhoods, maybe in the Americas. I'm not sure, but maybe just to expand on that a little bit for the audience who might be curious about what's a great place to live in Medellin.
Absolutely, yeah. So Laureles, it was actually Time Out magazine as the coolest neighborhood in the world a couple of years ago now. For me, it was always question. The two areas that most tourists go to are El Poblado and Laureles. Laureles is kind of more like the underdog. It's more, I don't know, it has many advantages. It's quieter. It's maybe a little bit more traditional. It's still a nice area. It's flat. And when I first went to Medellin, I went to study Spanish, so I had to choose between Laureles and El Poblado for where to take my classes. And one of my friends who was from Medellin, who had been teaching me online before, she suggested Laureles was good. So I went, I spent my time there, and I loved it. Poblado is an amazing place. There's so much there, like restaurants, cafes, shopping, you name it. But I like Laureles. I prefer Laureles. I don't know. It's more affordable than El Poblado, although the prices have risen quite a bit there as well. But it's just, it's more traditional. Like I said earlier, there are people that are vendors that are going down the street selling avocados. There's parks, there's outdoor gyms, there's markets, and there's good offers, like a good offering of restaurants, cafes as well. And it's close to the stadium as well. There are a lot of exercise facilities there and events in that area. So for me, it's my preferred neighborhood. Although there are some other nice areas to consider, which you know. But of those big two, I prefer Laureles.
Yeah, and it's super green. It's very green. There's lots of beautiful this vegetation, these massive plants. I love the plants that the leaves are bigger than you, and they're kind of Jurassic Park plants. And it's also connected to the metro system, which is also really convenient. So let's dig into this a little bit in terms of the operationalization of your plan. So, have you done kind of a cost of living analysis of what you're going to spend here and what it, how it compares to back home? And what are you doing with your home back home for the year? Are Are you leasing it out? Are you keeping it vacant? These are all things people wanting to escape the grind to another country need to think about. And I think it gets even more complicated when you leave a place in Canada, because we need to have all sorts of insurance pieces in place. So yeah, maybe just dig into that a little bit for our audience.
Sure. So first of all, in terms of living expenses, from all my trips, I'm kind of a nerd with this stuff. I track all of my expenses anytime I travel, so I can tell you how much I spend per day and break it down by category. Roughly speaking, my cost of living when I'm in Colombia is roughly half of what it is here, maybe slightly more than half. So for the time I spend in Colombia, that's kind of what I expect. The cost of living here in Canada has gone up quite a bit, but it's also gone up in Colombia. I noticed every year. But generally speaking, it's, yes, maybe slightly more than half in terms of expenses. I do plan to travel around a bit as well this year, so that'll be some flights. I'm going to try to rely on points and miles and all that kind of stuff, but I'll run out of those at some point. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to try to find ways to save. So, like traveling on the cheaper days, for example, like you have more flexibility. So when I'm going place to place, I can be more flexible with that. I can book accommodation for now, a month at a time, and have some significant discounts that way. In terms of my place, I have the filter blurred for a number of reasons, but I'm also in the process of packing up. So I'm renting my apartment. I've been here for a number of years now. I became a renter about 8 or 9 years ago, and I've decided this is an opportunity to get rid of most of my stuff, because I've always wanted to, and I've never had that push to kind of get rid of things because I have the space for it. So yeah, I'm going to get rid of my place. I'm going to get rid of as much of my stuff, especially the non-essential stuff, as I can. Put some stuff in storage and have no empty apartment back home. It's something that I thought about, and it's made my next month and a half quite more busy than I had planned. But I think it's worth it. It's an opportunity to save money by not having to pay rent back home, and it's an opportunity to get lighter and get rid of things like I have someone coming later to buy my exercise bike, and like all these things that I've just been like, I might use it someday. Well, when you have to pay storage for something, it kind of nudges you into action. So
yeah, and think of the mental space you're also gaining from those decisions. Speaking of, what do you think about the concept of time? How do you think that's going to shift for you? I'll share my experience once you're done. I don't want to bias you, but your current situation is 9 to 5, walk to work. You're constrained by time. How do you think your time is going to shift in the sabbatical?
So yeah, it'll be, and I've kind of had the taste of this too on my longer trips, because my friends in Colombia, they work their jobs during the day. So I'm used to kind of just getting up when my body tells me it's time, taking things slow in the morning, going out for lunch, menu del dia, a good amount of food, going out for coffee, that kind of thing. But I don't know. I find when I'm in Colombia, I go out more because I'm not working, I'm not drained. I'm not here, especially the days where I am going into the office. When I get back, it just feels like it's already time to go to bed after I get home. Like it feels like I don't have any free time, and that's always a frustration. I don't know. I like, some people are really, they thrive on having structure. I'll have some things planned and some things here and there, but I'm completely at ease with just, especially in the morning hours, not having to get up and just go and have coffee on the balcony and listen to the birds. And yeah, it's a special thing that I look forward to.
Yeah, that's so true. I also felt like that in Canada. I felt like there was never enough time. My experience is that time is just because you become time rich. It's just more abundant. So I'll give you a couple of examples. So when I go to the gym and a machine or something is occupied, instead of getting all in a huff and a puff and kind of circling the person using the machine, I just walk over to a different part of the gym and find something else, even if it's not part of my routine or stretch, because I'm not in a hurry anymore. And so that's really interesting to just feel like it's all good. If the workout needs to take an extra 20 minutes, no worries, no skin off my back. So it changes even how I feel in the gym. When weekends come, I'm like, man, all these people are going to be out and it's going to be crowded everywhere. And so I used to, crave the weekends because I'd have time to decompress. So it's been interesting, right, to see how time, ebbs and flows and changes, and your perception of it changes as you get more of it.
Totally.
So that's been interesting. Let's also continue kind of on this lifestyle theme. Have you thought about health benefits? What are you expecting in terms of health benefits? Are you expecting to see some improvement? And if so, in what realms?
Yeah, I always noticed I sleep better and longer when I'm in Colombia. I noticed that I get into better shape. I take a lot of stairs when I'm in Colombia. Oftentimes I stay in buildings where they may have an elevator, but if I can take the stairs, I will, as long as it's not on the 20th floor or something. But yeah, just to have more time to dedicate to fitness. I walk a lot, like you mentioned with the steps. I get a lot of steps in when I'm there. So yeah, eating well as well. Even though it's funny, I eat out more often when I'm in Colombia, but I end up losing weight every time. Like I always lose a couple of pounds by the time I come back, which is not the case for my old vacations. But I think, yeah, just a combination of diet and exercise. Like the diet, the food there, I eat so much fresh fruit. Um, I eat more balanced meals. And yeah, I don't know. I find food is simpler there, but like simple and healthy and more balanced. So yeah, I think a combination of sleep, health benefits, being more active, and eating well. I could use was losing a couple more pounds, so I'm due for a trip.
Yeah, I find the food here really hearty. The ingredients feel very, very fresh. Everything's organic. It's wonderful. You feel like you're eating premium food. I've actually brought down some curries because they don't like spice here, so that's how I make things a little more interesting. But maybe one thing the audience might not know, which I found interesting, is Colombia is like a soup culture.
Yeah, yeah,
And so almost every meal comes with some soup, and they're all hearty, delicious. It's like your mom made it, sort of delicious. And so that's a really cool part of the culture. You always get a soup, and there's great soup to be had almost everywhere. It's abundant.
absolutely.
And it's not something that's normal in Canada. You order a soup with a three-course meal or something, but here it's just a given. It just comes with your meal.
Exactly.
Which I love, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Switching a little bit into kind of assessing your sabbatical year. So since the sabbatical has an end date, how are you going to approach the question, do I go back? So have you thought of criteria? So is there criteria that'll help you decide, I'm going back, or is there criteria that says this is working out really well for me? I think I need to extend this or find a way to make this a more long-term plan?
Good question. I'd say my default position is, depending. Hopefully, nobody at work is listening to this. But my default position is not to go back. But yeah, I just want to get a realistic picture in the coming months of what I can expect in terms of the expenses, with all the travel and different things, the state of the market, how I'm feeling, can I handle being off work for this much time? I think I'll be able to. But yeah, my plan is to get through these months, track my expenses, do what I want to do, and then I'll update my financial plan. I'll have a meeting with my planner, and just kind of validate that I'm still on the right path, and that. But yeah, if there's some kind of major market correction or something, I don't know. It's hard to see myself coming back, but I have that option. But my default is just go, have fun, see, do what I want to do, and then make the decision kind of closer to the time. I could always ask for a different type of leave, slightly less time, to kind of hit snooze on that, but we'll see. Also, family circumstances could lead me to wanting to come back, be closer to home. So that's another possibility. But yeah, default position, hoping that it goes well and hoping that this winter is my last in these cold parts.
That's totally fair. That's funny that you say this is your last winter. I've been telling my wife for like the last 5 years that one of these is going to be my last winter.
Yeah.
And she's Colombian, so she only spent, I think, 13 years in Canada, and she kind of shrugs and says, I like winter. I think winter's fine. And I always say to her, well, I've had 29 winters. So, so we always get a good laugh out of that. But seriously, I'm striving to not have to experience another winter again in my life. At least not a Canadian winter.
Yeah.
I did. Let me just rewind a little bit. I forgot to ask you when we were talking about lifestyle, about healthcare. How are you thinking about, your healthcare needs while you are in Colombia? Are you? I'm sure you have some sort of extended emergency travel benefit that probably covers you while you're on leave. But what about the day-to-day, like getting your teeth cleaned or going to see a doctor when you do get sick? What's your plan for that?
So I will probably, I haven't decided yet because I'm still waiting for my package from work, but I will probably maintain my benefits here at a cost, but that'll entitle me to certain things like, dental, medical, new glasses, that kind of thing. It's probably going to be worth it for me to keep it here. And I know that I'll be back here at certain points in the year where I can kind of take advantage of those. In terms of healthcare in Colombia, I've had to access the healthcare system once, and I ended up having to go to a clinic. The experience was nothing like what it is in Canada, where you spend 12 hours waiting in emergency, and a lot of people just kind of give up. There, I waited maybe 5 minutes. I went in and saw somebody. I had blood work done. I had results, everything within a space of a few hours. I did have to pay for it, but it was a very, very affordable and reasonable amount. Also, if I do end up getting an investor's visa, I believe one of the requirements is to get some sort of healthcare package there. So I would do that and have that kind of coverage for my time in Colombia.
Yeah, that's how it works here if you have access.
Yeah.
So I have what's called a prepagada, medicina prepagada. It's with one of these outfits, and they have clinics all over the place. I actually threw my back out at the gym in September, and I just went. I didn't even book an appointment. I just went. My copay was, I think, about $15 Canadian, and I was immediately ushered in. The nurse took my vitals, and within 10 minutes, the doctor was in the room with me, examined me, kind of checked my back. He said, I think it's muscular, but let's just make sure it's not a spinal injury. I want to do some x-rays. So they ushered me into another room. We did x-rays within 10 minutes, walked back to the other room, and the doctor came in, looked at the results, said, yep, it's muscular, your spine's great, here's your prescription, and, do some physio. And we were out within half an hour, 40 minutes. So that was really cool, because in Canada, you'd be waiting in a walking clinic to try and see a doctor, get your requisition. Hopefully within a few days you could go and get the ultrasound or x-ray, and then go back and see the doctor to have your debrief. And in all that time you'd be in pain. So this was great, because I got medications, solved the pain issue, started to recover very quickly. So that's the neat part about Colombia, if you get a good plan. So let's just maybe move to an actionable step to put a bow on this. So if we have, someone in the audience who's interested in escaping the grind through a sabbatical, what might be, the first actionable couple of steps for them to take towards that goal? How can they broach this sort of conversation with a supervisor, whether it's in the public sector or the private sector? Maybe you don't have experience in the private sector, but it might be similar, it might be different. But what advice or action steps could someone take to think about and start to prepare for a sabbatical year like yours?
Yeah, it's again, I'm so much more familiar with the public sector and our kind of bubble, but I think the first thing you have to do is have a plan for the year. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? It's one thing to just want to escape or get away from your job, but it's going to be there in a year. So yeah, think about what you want to do, why you're doing it. Look at the associated cost, the opportunity cost. If you have that flexibility, I know some fields are easier than others to take a step away. Like, for example, when I moved to the UK, I had a government job. It wasn't permanent, but it was lining up to be. And in spite of that, I decided to go to the UK. I left, I gave my notice, and I went, and I knew the government's going to be here when I get back. And sure enough, it took me a couple of months when I moved back a few years later, but I got my job, and it all worked out. So, I kind of say have a plan, but then in my experience, I didn't have a plan, and it worked out just fine going to the UK. But I would say, look at people that have done it, and learn from them. You may not have friends in real life that have done this kind of thing, but try to find communities online of people that have done it, learn from their successes or what didn't go so well. And speaking with I'm fortunate because I know my supervisor very well. She's somebody I've worked with for many years as a colleague and now as my manager. She was not surprised at all, and nor were my colleagues, because they know how much I love Colombia, especially. But yeah, just I don't know. It's something that a lot of people, if they were in your shoes and able to do this, they would have had so many colleagues tell me, "Oh, I would love to do what you're doing," and my supervisor as well. So think when you explain it that you need a break. People understand that, and my management, senior management, were supportive. So yeah, that's just have a plan, kind of think it through, and so that on day one you know what you're doing, and you don't waste valuable time kind of figuring things out.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I'd imagine that a supervisor would appreciate if the person requesting, a sabbatical year also came prepared with some sort of plan, a plan to distribute work, or what is urgent, what is not, and how to make this work so that the supervisor has, less reasons to deny it. I'm sure that would go a long way as well.
Absolutely. And like that, for me, one of my colleagues happens to be coming back from a leave of her own the same time I'm leaving. And also my major project is kind of moving on to the next phase. So the timing works out perfectly. But you're right. If you can time it around that, if possible, or think of, how they're going to be impacted and how you kind of mitigate that. It's good things to think through.
I think also just being a good human and a good employee, of course, goes a long way. There's a quote, I forget the name of the author, but I've heard him in many podcasts. And he kind of says, why focus on side hustles and other things? Why not just focus on being so good no one can ignore you? And so if you are so good that no one can ignore you, including your supervisor, that also provides an incentive for them to want to retain you. So I think that's a given. Be a good employee and a good human, but making yourself someone pleasant who the supervisor and the team want to retain, that will go a long way as well.
Absolutely.
Well, maybe our last question here, Zach, what final message do you want to leave anyone dreaming of escaping the grind using some of your methodologies?
I'll say in theory, it's good to have a plan and all that stuff. It can make your life easier. But like I said, not doing something on a whim worked out well for me when I went to London. It remains one of the best decisions I've made. Changed who I am as a person. That experience of living abroad, even if it's for 1 year, can change your life. And so, just being open to new cultures, being flexible, and your time will come. You may not be able to do it tomorrow, but be patient. It gives you more time to plan and kind of set your things, get your things in order. And once you decide that you have a plan, it's very easy to focus, lock in, and focus on it. It becomes so much easier. Seek out those people, like-minded people that you can connect with, that you can ask questions to. And everyone's journey is different, but try to seek inspiration from others and learn from their successes. And I don't like to use the word failures, but just lessons learned. And it's so many people have told me in the last weeks when I've told my colleagues, I wish I could do what you're doing. If you have the opportunity to do it, why not?
Yeah, having a plan piece resonates with me, and I would go further. Having a plan and then breaking it up into achievable chunks so you can celebrate those small wins and eventually get there is super important. Well said. Well, thank you, Zach. That brings us to the end of the episode. So I want to thank you so much for sharing your journey from federal government worker to FI pursuing digital nomad and achieving location independence in Medellin, Colombia. Now, before we let you go, where can our audience find you, and what's the best way for them to connect with you, check your content, or just follow your travels?
So I'm actually considering starting something more publicly. I do have an Instagram. I'll maybe post in the comments, but it's Zaku Koivu. Anyone who's familiar with NHL might get that reference. But I'll post it in the comments. I am planning to maybe document my upcoming year. A lot of people told me I should, so something I'm considering. So maybe I'll add that to the comments when the time comes.
Awesome. Well, thank you. We'll make sure to put that in the show notes as well. Thank you again, Zach, and thank you to everyone for tuning in to Escaping the Grind. If you loved this episode, please hit subscribe and consider leaving a quick rating and review. It really helps amplify these stories. Thanks so much, and see you next time.
Thank you.